Hello there. Tonight we are going to stumble back in time to a place where the floor is always wet, the ale is always warm, and personal space is a mythical concept. That's right. We're visiting a medieval tavern. You're cold, you're soaked to the bone, and your boots, your only pair, make that awful squelching noise every time you take a step. You haven't eaten since barley stew at dawn, which was more barley than stew, and just now a cartload of turnips nearly ended your entire bloodline in the village square. Welcome to your evening. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments what time it is where you are and where you're tuning in from. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You're walking through muck so thick it feels like it's plotting against you. The sky is the exact shade of soggy linen, the kind no one bothers to bleach. A cold drizzle clings to your clothes. Somewhere behind you a horse sneezes with unsettling force. You keep walking, guided not by sight or sense of direction, but by noise. Human noise. Laughter, shouting, and the sort of off-key singing that implies alcohol and zero shame. You follow it. Through the smoke of the blacksmith's forge and past the shouting of a fishmonger advertising his overly enthusiastic eels, you stumble into the heart of it, a crooked wooden structure that leans like it's either drunk or sad or both. It has no sign, not really. Just a hanging wooden board with a poorly painted creature, possibly a barrel, possibly a bear, maybe both. Either way, it wobbles in the wind and dares you to enter. The front step is slick with something that might be ale, but could also be something more ominous. You don't want to know. The iron hinged door lets out a groan, one long theatrical creak that seems a little too aware of itself, like it's done this before and wants applause. And then it hits you. The smell. Not one smell, an orchestra of them. First comes the warmth, a kind of humid soup of fire smoke and humanity. Then sweat. Then something sour and fermented, possibly beer, but possibly a very determined onion. Beneath it all, there's a meat smell, ambiguous and faintly accusatory. You're inside. The floor is not just dirt, it is actively trying to stay that way. Someone has thrown straw across it, like an apology. It does not help. A fire roars in the hearth, trying to chase away the damp and failing in style. Candlelight flickers along soot-stained walls, casting shadows that move like they've got something to prove. Every sound is louder in here. The clatter of wooden mugs, the thump of boots on the ground, the word duck shouted not because of poultry, but because someone's about to throw something. You look around. Every table is crowded. Not in the neat hostess will seat you shortly sort of way. No. This is the kind of crowd where personal belongings become public domain and elbows are currency. Someone gestures to a space at the far bench, but it's not exactly dry. You weigh your options and sit anyway. It's warm. It's probably cursed. It's yours. To your right, a woman is shouting about her missing chicken. To your left, a man stares blankly at a mug like it just told him terrible news. Under the table, a dog is gnawing on a bone with the confidence of a rent-paying tenant. And just past them, a bard sings something vaguely goose-related in a key known only to him. There's a strange comfort in the chaos. Like being wrapped in a blanket that smells bad but is warm anyway. This tavern has no menu, no reservations, and certainly no bouncers. It also has no rules except don't spill the ale, don't insult the barmaid, and absolutely do not ask what's in the stew unless you're ready for a spiritual crisis. Historians still debate whether the stew was safer than the water. And here's something that might surprise you. Taverns weren't always about alcohol. In many medieval towns, the tavern was one of the only places where news was passed along. No newspapers, no town meetings, just loud voices, louder rumors, and that one guy who swears the king has a tail. The ceiling is low. If you're tall, you duck. If you're drunk, you bump your head and pretend it was intentional. There's laughter all around, but none of it feels malicious. Just rough, raw, unfiltered humanity. If you want sophistication, You're a few hundred years too early. If you want comfort, pull your cloak tighter and pretend that wet patch isn't ale. Somewhere near the hearth, someone sneezes with such force that half the room leans away. No one flinches. It's part of the ambience now. The air is thick with smoke and the scent of wet wool, a medieval version of an essential oil diffuser, with none of the wellness, all of the aroma. You let out a long breath. Maybe this is where the night will unfold. Maybe you'll find food, maybe you'll find a story, maybe you'll lose your coin purse to a child pretending to be a rat. All of that is possible. But for now, you found the tavern. And no matter what happens next, whether the bard's song ends in tragedy or interpretive dance, you're not out there anymore. You're here, inside, warm-ish, alive-ish. And that in medieval times was more than enough. The door closes behind you, with a weighty thud shutting out the cold drizzle and trapping you inside a whole different weather system, one made entirely of fire breath and whatever that smell is that no one ever dares identify. The light is dim, barely enough to see more than outlines at first. Candles flicker from wall-mounted sconces, crooked iron things dripping wax like tired tears. Smoke clings to the ceiling beams in a lazy haze, drifting down in threads so thin they feel like cobwebs brushing your skin. And yes, the first thing you really notice, the very first thing that truly reaches out and makes contact with your soul, is the smell. It doesn't arrive in waves. It arrives all at once, an olfactory ambush. The top note is ale warm sour and spilled everywhere. It's soaked into the wood, the straw on the floor, the clothes of nearly everyone in the room. Then there's sweat years of it, human mostly, some of it very recent, some of it possibly from the guy who's currently passed out beside the hearth, snoring like a wounded ox. A musky undertone of horses lingers too, clinging to cloaks and boots. Then there's something earthy, almost sweet, wet straw perhaps. But wait, there's more. A dash of boiled onions, a whisper of moldy bread. And just when you think your nose can't take any more, you get hit with something that might be garlic, or cheese, or both. Historians still debate whether this aroma blend was deliberate or just a natural byproduct of human proximity and poor ventilation. Welcome to the medieval tavern where the air is thick enough to chew. You take a few slow steps further in letting your eyes adjust. The darkness here isn't total, it's just intimate. It wraps around your body like a scratchy wool blanket that's been through too many winters. You're not alone in feeling disoriented. Everyone new steps in like this hesitant blinking, assaulted by scent and sound. The seasoned regulars don't even look up. They know this place better than they know their own beds. Someone stumbles past you carrying 3 wooden mugs, sloshing liquid with each wobbling step. None of the mugs match. One looks like it used to be part of a bowl. The drinks are probably different too, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they're wet and mildly intoxicating, which puts them in high demand. You maneuver around a group of loud men engaged in some kind of shouting match that appears to be about pig prices. No one's angry yet, but voices are escalating, and one man has started waving a turnip as though it were legal evidence. You keep your distance. Over by the corner, a dog with one eye is gnawing on something under a table. You hope it's a bone. You also hope it's not human. The dog glances up at you as if to say, "I pay rent here," and you decide not to challenge that. The tables are carved with decades of initials, rough drawings, and at least one rather impressive depiction of a dragon being punched by a man wearing suspiciously modern-looking boots. Knife marks crisscross the surface like forgotten battle scars. The wood is warped. The benches are worse. They creak when you breathe near them. Some are damp. With what you don't ask. Everything in here has 2 states of being sticky or on fire. Some things manage both. A mug steams near the hearth. A man's beard has caught a candle's flame and he pats it out without comment. Life in the tavern moves on. In the far back, there's a staircase, narrow, steep, and possibly sentient. A single boot hangs from the railing like a warning or maybe a trophy. No one seems to notice it. Or perhaps everyone does and has chosen not to ask. The hearth dominates one wall, an open, glowing maw of light and smoke. It's not just a fire, it's the beating heart of the room. People cluster near it like moths with mugs, their faces glowing red and gold in the flickering light. The smoke from the fire doesn't quite go up the chimney. Some of it spills back into the room, curling through the rafters, like it's looking for secrets. The chimney might be clogged, possibly with soot, possibly with a dead crow. Historians are still arguing about that one. You make your way toward the hearth. It's not a direct path. The furniture is arranged like someone tried to solve a puzzle blindfolded during an earthquake. You twist, you duck, you sidestep. Someone coughs behind you violently. Someone else sneezes. A collective leaning away motion sweeps through half the room. It's almost choreographed. You nod in appreciation. And now you're closer. You can feel the heat on your face, the flush of it making the dampness on your skin feel more alive than you'd like. You settle onto a bench that feels only mildly cursed. The wood is warm from proximity to fire and from the body heat of at least 6 previous occupants. It groans beneath you. You sit anyway. You realize, as your heartbeat slows and your breath steadies, that the noise isn't quite as random as it first seemed. There's a rhythm to it. Mugs thump, laughter crescendos and falls, the fire pops in protest. Even the shouting follows a tempo, like a chaotic lullaby composed by inebriated farmers and sung by candlelight. Someone nearby laughs loud and hearty, the kind of laugh that makes other people start laughing, even if they didn't hear the joke. You smile despite yourself. The air is foul, the bench is damp, your boots are soaked, but for the first time all day, you're warm. You're not being rained on. And perhaps most importantly, no one is asking you to haul firewood or explain your taxes. This tavern may be a madhouse, but it's a welcoming one. Everyone is here for the same reason, to forget something. Maybe it's a bad harvest. Maybe it's the ache in their joints. Maybe it's just that life outside these smoke-stained walls is hard in ways too heavy to carry alone. But in here, surrounded by noise and nonsense, the weight feels a little lighter. A bard begins tuning a lute in the corner. It sounds like the instrument is resisting. 3 strings in, he begins to sing. The lyrics are probably improvised. Something about a goose, a nun, and a suspiciously handsome shepherd. The song makes no sense, but it's catchy. People tap their mugs in rhythm, and someone spills something on the floor nearby. You hear it before you see it, a wet splash followed by a quiet groan. No one reacts. This too is part of the tavern's language. The unwritten rules say if it didn't spill on you, it didn't happen. You lean back against the wall. Your cloak smells like wet wool and despair. Your feet are thawing, which means they're starting to itch. You shift, trying to find a dry spot on the bench. You fail. Still you smile. You found shelter. You found warmth. And somehow you found the one place in the village where the madness makes sense. Welcome to the medieval tavern. You probably won't survive the week, but tonight you might just make it. You've been in the tavern for less than 10 minutes and already you feel like you've aged a decade. Not in a bad way, more like you've earned it. Like the tavern ages you with dignity, or at least with character. You glance around hoping to find a spot less cursed than your current seat, but quickly realize that everything in here carries a history and a stain. The bench creaks beneath you again. You shift your weight and feel a subtle squish that makes your spine straighten involuntarily. You try not to think about it. Could be ale, could be broth, could be something your great-grandchildren will still dream about in horror. This is not a place for the squeamish, not a... A man across the table raises a mug to you in what seems like camaraderie, or maybe just poor eyesight. You nod back cautiously. He smiles, revealing teeth that look like survivors of many hard winters. There's a warmth in his gaze, though the kind that says, "We're in this mess together." You start to relax just a little. Then you notice what's happening to your left. A game of some sort is in full swing. It involves dice a lump of what might be cheese and aggressive whispering. One of the players is missing an eyebrow. The other appears to be arguing with the table more than his opponent. You're not sure of the rules, but the stakes seem high. There's a chicken watching from under the bench, and it looks worried. Behind you, someone belches with the force of a minor deity. It echoes through the room, bounces off the beams, and prompts a brief, scattered round of applause. The culprit bows. Someone else tries to outdo him, but ends up coughing instead. A barmaid walks by without flinching. She's carrying 3 mugs and a ladle, and she looks like she could take down a bear with either. To your right, a man slouches over the table, muttering something about taxes and goats. His head is resting on a plate that might once have held food. Now it holds only crumbs and a spoon that's trying to escape. You watch as he snores gently, drooling onto the wood. No one wakes him. This is just another normal Thursday. The fire cracks behind you, sending up a fresh wave of heat and smoke. It's comforting in a way. You inhale and immediately regret it. The warmth brings out the full bouquet of the room ale-soaked, straw-damp wool and the general note of unwashed humanity. It's a smell you'll carry home with you, possibly forever. Someone yells, "Who stole my ladle from near the back?" No one answers. A man quietly slips the ladle into his cloak and resumes eating. The light is uneven. Candles burn low in the wall, sconces casting odd twitching shadows. The smoke from the fire drifts lazily upward, hugging the rafters, before getting trapped and slowly seeping back down. You blink and catch movement near the ceiling. It's just the smoke, right? You convince yourself it is. The layout of the tavern is what some might call organic. Tables sit at odd angles, benches are too close together or absurdly far apart. Some people sit on crates, barrels, or the occasional overturned bucket. One man is using a saddle as a cushion. Another is perched on a stack of firewood, swaying gently as he sings a lullaby to no one in particular. There is no clear center to the room, but there is a kind of gravitational pull toward the hearth, where the heat is most intense and the light strongest. Those lucky enough to sit closest guard their seats fiercely. You watch as one man shifts just slightly and another tries to sneak into the space like a wolf stalking an injured deer. The seated man hisses. The interloper backs away. No violence, just warning. It's a delicate ecosystem, this place. Somehow, amidst the filth noise and complete disregard for personal boundaries, there's a rhythm. People know when to shout and when to stay silent, when to offer help and when to pretend they didn't see anything, when to laugh and when to duck. This tavern isn't run by rules, it's run by instinct, and instinct tells you to stay seated. You've finally found a position where the bench isn't actively biting you. You lean back slightly, trying to ignore the way the wood groans like a dying goat. You let your eyes wander. In the far corner, 2 figures are deep in conversation. One is cloaked hood, drawn low, hands hidden beneath the table. The other wears armor dented and stained from a dozen unnamed battles. Their voices are hushed, but their body language speaks volumes. Something serious, or scandalous, or both. You make a mental note not to get involved. A woman walks by carrying a tray of food. You catch the scent, pottage thick and steaming, heavy with barley and mystery. Your stomach growls in response, loud enough that the man next to you chuckles. He slides a small piece of bread your way. It's hard as stone, but it's a gesture. You nod in thanks, chewing slowly. It tastes like disappointment and nostalgia, and yet in this place it's oddly satisfying. The man to your left turns suddenly and says, "They say the king's got a 3rd nipple." You blink. He nods sagely. "Saw it myself. Looked like a mushroom." Then he returns to his ale. You sip air and pretend to agree. Above you the ceiling beams are low and ancient, coated in layers of soot and dust. Something drips occasionally. You don't look up. Somewhere behind the bar, the tavern keeper shouts something unintelligible. A barmaid answers with a string of words that might be a curse or a recipe. A mug crashes. Laughter erupts. Another belch follows. Despite the chaos, or maybe because of it, this place works. It functions. Everyone knows their role. The drunk, the bard, the thief, the flirt, the wanderer. Even you, new as you are, have a place. You're the quiet one for now, the observer, the outsider soon to be absorbed. And then the music begins. Not the bard. Not yet. No, this is different. It's the music of the tavern itself. The rhythm of mugs slamming on wood, of chairs scraping across dirt, of voices rising and falling in semi-coherent waves. It's the percussion of spilled stew, the melody of hiccuped laughter, the bass line of boots thudding across floorboards. This place is alive, and you, for all your skepticism and soaked clothing, are part of it now. You sit back and let the moment settle over you. The smells are no less awful, the sounds no less deafening, but something in you loosens. Maybe it's the warmth. Maybe it's the bread. Maybe it's the knowledge that here in this loud, smelly, sticky corner of medieval life, you're not alone. Whatever happens next, be it a brawl, a ballad, or a bowl of something unspeakable, you're ready. Because you've found a place, a bench, a cursed, damp, questionably clean place, but it's yours, at least until someone else claims it. The tavern is crowded, but there's only one true ruler here, and it's not the man in chainmail snoring with his mouth open or the red-faced merchant bragging about his barley prices. It's the tavern keeper. You spot them now, behind what loosely qualifies as a bar, a thick wooden plank resting atop two aging barrels. It sags in the middle like it's tired of holding up this whole operation, and yet it doesn't collapse just like the keeper. They move like a storm in slow motion, equal parts thunder and inevitability. One moment they're ladling ale into a mug, the next they're yelling across the room in a voice so sharp it could peel paint. The man at the far end of the bar freezes mid-sip. He knows he's in trouble. The keeper doesn't have to say another word. That's the power they hold. If the tavern is a ship navigating the unruly sea of medieval society, the keeper is both captain and anchor. Their word is law, their stare is judgment, and their memory is terrifying. Ask anyone here, they remember every face, every debt, and every brawl, often in disturbingly specific detail. Tonight's keeper is a woman, and not a young one. She looks carved from oak and vinegar. Her arms are strong from hauling barrels, her eyes sharper than a falcon in tax season. She's not just running the place, she's commanding it. You watch as she settles a dispute between two gamblers. With a single look, pours a drink with her other hand, and somehow notices the new stain forming on the back bench from across the room. She mutters something under her breath, likely a curse or a prayer, maybe both. The tavern keeper is not to be trifled with. She's silenced grown men with a raised eyebrow. Once, according to legend, or at least the bard in the corner, she chased out a band of thieves with nothing but a wooden spoon, and an insult so effective one of them cried. Historians still debate whether that story was true, but everyone agrees she's the reason the roof hasn't fallen in yet. Behind the plank bar lies a clutter of mugs, ladles, small barrels, and one suspiciously well-polished club. She doesn't need it often, but it's always there, like punctuation. If diplomacy fails, punctuation swings. She knows everyone. Regulars get a nod and a drink before they even speak. Strangers like you get a once-over quick calculating and not unkind, but not warm either. Trust here is earned by the mug, not the smile. She doesn't write anything down. Why would she? Her mind is a ledger. She knows who owes for stew, who spilled cider on the priest's shoes last week, and who's banned from sitting near the hearth because of the incident nobody talks about. The incident. The tavern might be chaotic, but under her watchful eyes, an organized kind of madness. You learn quickly if the keeper likes you, your night goes smoother. If she doesn't, well, you best drink fast and keep your jokes to yourself. There's a hierarchy in this room, but it has nothing to do with noble blood or coin purses. It starts and ends with the keeper. She's the referee during arguments, the judge in cheating accusations, and the quiet dealer of mercy or wrath when someone's had one too many. Tonight she's in a tolerable mood. The place hums, laughter rolls in waves, and the tension that usually coils beneath the noise is absent for now. But that could change. A tankard dropped too loudly. A joke that lands wrong. A glance held too long. and the keeper's mood could flip like a drafty window shutter in a storm. Her assistants move through the room like anxious bees dodging limbs and spilled stew. Their young one might be her daughter another, perhaps an orphan taken in from the street. They carry mugs, mop floors, refill stew pots, and try to avoid getting knocked over by drunken patrons reenacting battles from their glory days. Every once in a while, one of them makes a mistake. A mug slips, a bowl shatters. The keeper notices but doesn't always scold. It depends on how tired she is and how much noise it made. In some taverns, the keeper is a man. Those tend to be barrel-shaped individuals who smell like brine and regret. Gruff, grizzled with arms like smoked hams and a temper you can measure in decibels. But here it's her. And it's better that way. She keeps the whole thing from falling into ruin, and she does it in an apron stained with every liquid known to mankind. She watches everything. Even when she's not looking at you, she knows. She sees the dice game in the corner and knows someone is cheating. She hears the bard slur a verse and knows he's drunk too early. She notes which tables haven't ordered food and who's pretending to sip from an empty mug. She'll deal with it. Not now. Later, when it's quiet and you're least expecting it. Need information? Bribe the keeper, want protection from that toothless man who's been glaring at your coin pouch, sit near the bar, want a favor. You'd better have done something helpful last week or brought fresh bread. Real favors cost more than gold in here. At one point, a man approaches the bar and whispers something. The keeper's eyes narrow. She nods once and points toward the back room. He disappears through a curtain made of thick cloth and probably darker intentions. No one asks what goes on back there. It's not polite. Some say it's where the gambling happens. Others say it's where the ghosts live. Either way, the keeper knows, and that's enough. Sometimes she smiles. Not often. But when she does, it changes the whole room. The kind of smile that makes people drink slower and laugh quieter. It's rare, but it's real. And if you see it, count yourself